6 p.m. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Okay. I see Dennis on the phone. Dennis, are you there? Dennis Lynch.
About what?
11.
Okay.
But he may have been
Sidetracked by that.
waiting
Okay.
out. So
Alright, so are we back to 5?
is there any way to, well, I guess Dennis will be on the call. We'll just deal with the other items and then we'll deal with Dennis. Unless you're there right now, Dennis, we'll deal with the GZA item right now.
Is he there?
I don't think he is.
Just
All right.
unmuted, so you-
What's that?
Just unmuted.
Are you there,
Oh.
Dennis?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening,
Alright.
thank you for joining us. So we are going to jump to item number 11, GZA Municipal Vulnerability Grant Phase 2 proposal. So this is the proposal from the engineering firm who is going to, if we agree, undertake the final design and permitting. Is that true, Dennis?
That's correct. The Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant.
Do you wanna speak briefly to the project? Scott's here and he hasn't been on the board, I don't think since phase 1, right? So if you wanna update us all, how it's going and briefly what phase 2 will look like, other than that we have the whole proposal in front of us.
Sure. The project is really an attempt to develop resiliency for climate change impacts. Essentially, climate change impacts inland for towns relates to, or the focus is on flooding, preventing flooding. And in the past, the town of Monterey center of town has had issues with flooding along the Concopat River. And communities that have this type of concern and need for funding to assist developing projects. In this particular case, the project involves the expansion of the existing 15-foot wide culvert just on the east side of Town Hall. Phase 1 was completed utilizing GZA, Geoenvironmental, along with the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. And this is the phase 2 project that was also approved. And the project essentially involves completing the initial design. They call that the preliminary design, and that was completed last year at 60% completion. And this final design will be the remaining 40%, in addition to the required permitting and approvals related to work to be done on the Concopat River. So
Thank you.
It's essentially a 2-year project, by the way, I should add that.
So in 2 years, we'll have 100% final design and permitting for the project.
That's the objective. And then phase 3 would be, if the town approves, funding would be for construction.
But it's my understanding, if I'm not mistaken, Dennis, the town isn't obligated to go forward with the construction of the project just because we've gotten this far, right?
That's correct. That's correct. It's essentially a new project, I should say, the next phase in the overall project would be phase 3, and that does not require to be done, but the town would be prepared so it should the town of Monterey conclude that it's necessary to do this, given the climate change impacts that we see happening throughout the region. A major drought, for example, is one example, and flooding does occur.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on the proposal? Any reservations?
I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So did we already, are you in the process of getting the phase 2 grant, or have we already gotten the phase 2 grant?
So Monterey has received and have been awarded the grant.
Okay, so, and the work is proceeding. Is the question whether we're accepting the grant?
Yeah, so we have the grant, but then, Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, we have, a certain amount of money to now do this engineering portion of it, phase 2. And there's a proposal from GZA, which is an engineering firm, to do the work. And this is their project, the scope of the project. And this is, just finalizing that we wanna go with GZA. And,
Are there
Dennis,
any
would you
other-
expand on how GZA was selected? Were they the only firm considered, or how did that process work?
Back in phase 1, the town sought to select a firm that was experienced in this area. And GZA was already providing work for the town, as I understand. They had been doing work related to the Lake Garfield Dam, for example. That is, annual evaluations, I believe, took place. So the town was familiar with their work, and they performed very well on the phase 1. And that basically laid the pathway to proceed with phase 2 if the select board chooses to do so. They are a well-recognized firm by the state.
So, thank you, Dennis. To talk money, so the total estimated budget is $83,420, which I believe, would our phase 2 grant money fully cover that amount?
Yes.
And Melissa, how would this relate to procurement? Since they've already begun the project, we don't need to put out an RFP?
Engineers don't actually.
Related to the overall project or the GZA?
Melissa was just informing us that engineers are not subject to procurement.
That's correct. In the 30B procurement process, they are exempted.
And we feel that they're the best firm to go with, because they're a good firm, but also because they've been doing previous work, including phase 1 of this same project.
That's correct. And their work was accepted by the state, and they were recognized in the application for phase 2 as a team, part of the team for the town of Monterey.
Dennis, Scott Jensen here with a question. We just went through something similar just today regarding a lawyer who gave us a estimated price that came in well over twice the amount. You guys are coming from Boston. There's some pretty hefty dollar values per hour. And one of the things is that there's time being driven from shop to site, et cetera, which is all understandable. Is there a local GZA office in, say, Berkshire County? Or are these people coming all the way from Boston out here to do their site and engineering work? I'm just curious, looking at the dollar values, GZA has put together $83,000+. What's our kind of a guarantee that it doesn't come in at 120?
I do,
If I may, this is a contract. With Jeremiah, we didn't have a contract.
well, also,
Understand, oh, so that's this is contractual.
This is contractual.
so, and furthermore, page 5 it does say estimated budget,
Yeah.
But it does say at the bottom of that paragraph below the table, the town will be informed if work beyond the proposed budget is required.
Which page is that?
5.
Okay,
So
Well,
that
it's-
gives us pretty good standing, to limit the amount. So the phase 2, sorry, you may have already answered this, but the phase 2 covers that, grant money covers that whole amount?
Yes, the way it's going to work is in a state grant, federal funding from another grant can be used as the local match. So the town of Monterey was lucky enough to get so-called 319 grant, Section 319 of the Clean Water Act, for the Hoop High Road project for Lake Garfield. So the work being done with federal dollars can be used as a local match for this grant.
Unrelatedly, that makes sense, Dennis. Unrelatedly, do we have a water management best practices grant funds available?
Yes, I believe it was 35 that we got from the community compact, and then the MVP for this one is 124,071.
So the phase 2, we've received 124 for phase 2?
The grant we were awarded is 124,071.
What grant is that? That's the
Municipal
Vulnerability, okay. 124.
And we also have, I can't remember if it's 35 or 40, but we
I think
haven't used that yet
35.
on the best practices.
So is that going to match our portion of this, or do we have a plan for that at the moment?
Dennis, weren't we using that for any overages on this?
The 319 federal grant will help match this state grant.
Is
So
this,
essentially- Yeah,
More than
essentially, if we did not have, excuse me,
24 plus 30 to 40 is a lot more than 83
You're also gonna pay for BRPC, you signed that contract last week.
on
Yeah.
this.
They're gonna be administering it.
And how much is that?
but that 124 figure is only for phase 2, phase 1 was a separate thing, and that's all said and done.
that's correct. And I can tell you that both, not only GZA, but the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission performed very well. And the project team was successful to stay at that budget number, did not exceed the phase 1 budget number.
seems a little loose.
Pardon?
Just seems a little loose,
What's the little loose?
the actual dollar values that we're supposed to be responsible for.
Well, yeah, I mean, since we don't have any money appropriated, we need to be sure, and it seems it is the case, but we need to be sure that the town's not on the hook for something. But it sounds like we have 120 plus from the phase 2 MVP grant, and how much is going to be RPC?
I don't have that on my computer.
And I can find.
It was last week, right?
The other one is community compact.
I didn't realize that
Which
BRPC Community Compact was about this part.
So we had, in fiscal year 22, we received a $35,000 award for the Monterey Watershed Management from the Community Compact. So that's what, $60,000 total. And I can go in the other room and find out.
BRPC, I'm pretty sure is 23,220 for administering phase 2.
How much? 20 bucks, right?
23,220 for administering phase 2.
So it's about 138 out of that 160 that she was just saying.
So that MVP best practices, we can spend to pay this, no problem.
Community Compact, yes.
Yes, sorry, I confused two things. So the community compact best practices, 35,000, we don't have allocated towards anything, and it
We
could
have
go
it
towards things.
allocated towards this.
Okay. Now it seems like we have an excess of money, a surplus.
But we can roll it over to phase 3.
Because out of all these funds, the MVP, the community compact best practices is the most flexible.
But the MVP is gonna be the most flexible. Whatever we don't use from the community compact will go back to the state.
And when do we have until to expend that? Can we encumber it? We can't encumber it.
We can ask for an extension.
Well, that would be good then to lead with that money, right,
With the community compact monies.
before it disappears.
Do we have any other projects that would be sensible to do with that money?
No, it's for this project.
It's for this project, then, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Just trying to find where it is.
Do we feel comfortable accepting this proposal from GZA tonight? Or do we want to wait a week?
I will confess that I did not read this entire document.
Why don't we wait a week and then we'll have a very clear picture of the funds available and,
I suspect we probably should, but I feel like I'd rather know a little more about it.
well, once, you can't take back a signature, so.
Yeah. Dennis, will it cause any problems for us to wait a week?
No,
Okay.
that would not be a
Okay.
problem.
It won't affect the meeting that we're having, the kickoff meeting?
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, Melissa. I believe that was October 5th. Hopefully, if the select board chose tonight to accept the GZA proposal, if the board does wait a week, that would have to be postponed, that kickoff meeting. And we've received emails from the MVP regional coordinator asking the town to begin the grant as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Next Wednesday's the fifth. I
Alright,
think we're not actually meeting next week till the sixth.
till Thursday.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually keep that day off too,
What, Thursday?
day after.
Understood.
Alright,
Does
so
that mean
we
we
will,
should try to do it tonight?
let's come back to this next week. And we're sorry for the delay. And we'll have a really good sense of the money.
So you're gonna have to postpone the meeting, Dennis.
How many people are in that meeting?
How many people are in that meeting?
Dennis, myself, the director of operations, I think GZA comes to it as well, BRPC.
Yes.
I'm sort of feeling like we need to just do it or not.
Yeah, there's some protections put in there.
But it's a kickoff meeting for an $83,000 project.
That may go over, but that we're covered up to about 140 of them.
How much is an MVP phase 2 grant? It was 140? Yeah, can we just get an exact, we can do some quick math. Fine,
I think you're fine.
I know, I think I was 124 and 35.
and we'll leave
124,071,
124,071 from MVP phase 2.
35,000 from the community compact.
Yeah. And 319, does that play into this or no?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so if you take the 124 for MVP phase 2, and you take the calculator, and you take 124,071 minus,
Grand.
We have an extra, like, 20.
Yeah, but then you gotta also take off BRP.
yeah, so
I
we've
added
already
that in.
signed BRP.
So the total of 124,071 and 35 is 159 and $71, 159 grand. And the total BRPC plus the 83 is 106. So we have more than 50,000 additional dollars.
Well, except that the MVP money expires, but even without the MVP money, we have 17 extra additional.
Well, it expires, but we can extend it.
But we, yeah,
We hope, but what happened with Jeremiah was we said, submit us bills early so we can pay
Mhm.
out of last fiscal year budget, which would have been fine. And then we didn't get the bills till later than we thought, and
I thought it was the community compact money that expired.
yes.
You said the MVP money.
Yeah,
right.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay, I do that all the
The
time.
community compact is very good about extensions.
Okay.
I can say that.
And we don't even need their money necessarily, it's just gonna help us save money towards phase 3.
Right, and we could pay that part first, and then, right, use those monies for the first payment so that it is used in time.
We can do that to the extent we can, and if we can't, we're still covered. So I would move that the board accept the proposal from GZA for phase 2 of the municipal vulnerability program for the culvert over the Concopot River.
I would second.
Is there any discussion, further discussion or comment on this? Motion. Okay, there being none, I'll call a vote. Susan?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And Justin, yes. And do you want, can I do a signature on here? You
On
gotta know.
page 6, yeah, that's fine.
Do you need a
Oh, you want
second?
me, I'll
I
give you
can-
mine, I'll give you mine.
It's just one.
Yeah, it's just-
I can handwrite the thing, right? Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much. And we'll proceed with the October 5th meeting.
Perfect,
Thank you, Melissa.
you're welcome.
Thank you. That deals with item 11. Good luck at the kickoff meeting. This does bring us back to old business number 4. Does it make sense to invite the town clerk in to discuss old business 4 and new business 9 and 10, if she's available?
Where does Sophia stand on this office coverage and makeup
Table
thing?
it until afterwards.
She agreed, she read my suggestions that I gave you in my summary, and she agreed with everything that I proposed. And I did look,
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
range
Wait,
for,
Where's the summary, under what number?
and I just moved mine, so it's either 7 or 8.
Department roundtables, be like,
Part-time
Nine
employee, that's
and
just
10
town
is
administrator,
sliding.
and then it's number
Bring her in for 4.
3 and 4. On mine, on my report.
Should we bring her in?
For number 4, but I think 9 and 10.
So I did look, and it's
We could go
$15 or
one way,
$20
so-
an hour for support staff.
Because that process is what the HR director should,
Which one?
9 and 10.
So you did have her look at that memo, you know, she vetted it today.
She did?
So what's item 4 in his, my next item?
Just the coverage for vacation time.
Oh, okay, we're going back to that.
For vacation, right, we never, I think the
Right,
feeling was
right.
it wasn't completed,
I was looking, and I'm like, I have Kimama next.
right,
Yeah, what's that about? I mean, what are you
I
doing
think
with
he was just keeping it on.
it's just on there because it's been on there, I don't really, I was just gonna say we need to table it to another meeting because I still need to meet with the fire chief and the building inspector. Since I said I would take point on finding out what the story was. I have some information, but
Well,
it's not complete.
the story of the building inspector has really nothing to do with noise.
No, but there were other issues. Building permit issues, fire inspection issues.
It's not our department.
Okay.
I don't think we have a right to stand up to discuss that.
Okay.
I mean, that's like
Right, no,
saying
and with
that, you know,
so as far as the noise goes, then there's no,
not until we get,
a noise ordinance.
there's nothing we could do up the hill to Hume.
I think the only thing we can
Other
do,
than have them come in and just say, hey, look, you know, work with us.
I think we could send them a letter.
Well, I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
Sorry to interrupt
That's okay.
that subject, but Terry, we are discussing office coverage during vacation.
Mhm.
And the board, so far the consensus is that if there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so far the consensus is that in order to keep regular office hours available to the public, if there are staff in a department who can fill in when the person in your case, when you're holding office hours, if you're on vacation, if staff could fill in for you, then that keeps the office hours more regular.
Okay.
But then we also discussed that the wages that staff may be paid, we may need to pay them more because it's an additional responsibility of keeping the office
Okay.
open. right? Is that what we discussed?
And then there was the question of where those funds would come from.
Well, in past years, they always came from the line item of clerk salary, unless there is a line item now
If they're serving
of
as a clerk.
of an assistant clerk. We would need to review that this coming budget and add more into it to cover those potential 10 to 20 hours. But this year, the way it worked, I think when I left and you first got on, was that if you went on vacation and had somebody fill in, just like having Gary here at any day, he's part of your line item budget. So that's where it would come from. But now we're saying that we'd like to bump that pay up a little bit to be a little closer to what the duty is for that time frame. And we're just trying to figure out, does that additional $5 an hour hypothetically come out of that line item? Because it's more than you may have put in the beginning of the year.
Right,
So there's a part of your vacation that when you go on it, you may actually, in the long end of your budget, run dry a week or so early. Because the extra money that he's gonna get paid to fill that position would deplete that fund just a little faster.
But if there are fewer hours in the town clerk salary item during that period at the close of the fiscal year, since
That's right,
it's
because that's not
happening
a
since she's on
salary
vacation,
position.
right? Since
And I get you.
she's on vacation,
Right,
could that
right,
money
right.
then be moved
I
from
was
one line to the other to
Yeah,
compensate
we
for it?
do internal transfers
Yeah.
at the end of the year.
Right,
No, you're absolutely right. It's not like you don't get a paid vacation.
no, I
Right.
usually make up, because it gets behind some, so I would always come in and work like probably 10 hours, or like 30 one week and then another, like to make up.
Right, but you only put in for your 20, correct?
No, I would do my makeup hours. If I took 5 hours off, I would come in and make up 5, like on a Saturday or Sunday or something.
Yeah, but it's a wash,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I-
It's not like you're doing your 20 and another 10
no,
at the end of the week,
No.
writing a bill for 30 hours.
No.
Right.
No, so
yes,
what's, so what's been happening, if I'm not mistaken, is if Terry goes on vacation one week and she's got, I know it's 19.75, but let's just say it's 20
yeah.
for simplicity's sake. And she has 2 10-hour shifts for simplicity's sake.
Mhm.
She doesn't work one 10-hour shift. I believe the way it's been working is she will put in for one 10-hour shift and get paid for 10 hours that week. And then the next week, put in for possibly 30 hours. So that over the 52 weeks, it only totals 20
Understood.
hours per week.
Yeah.
See, I don't have a problem with that, because you're doing the work.
Mhm.
Right? Isn't that kind of what we had said?
it is, the only problem comes with the office, the availability to the public.
Well, we've kind of agreed that the policy would be that while somebody is away on vacation, if they have an assistant, that assistant would try to step in and maintain office hours as best they can.
Right, but if the assistant is serving as let's call that person no longer just a
Well, there's
What
still
is
the
it,
assistant.
staff,
clerk.
no, but if they're acting as an assistant clerk and they're getting paid as an assistant clerk and they're serving the duties of an assistant clerk,
Uh-huh.
then the hours they serve should no longer be needed to be done by the clerk, because they would be doing the job.
Well-
Am I wrong? Where am I wrong?
Well, we gotta remember what our conversation was earlier, is that not everybody that, like, in my business, not everybody can do what I do.
Right.
They came in the office, they'd be like, oh boy. So that's the difference, is that there always will be a percentage of decline while that person's gone, and there will still be a pile of something that needs to be rectified.
I'm okay with that, but if it all comes down to clarity on what the assistant can actually do, because as I said, if the assistant can only meet 5% of the clerk's duties, I don't think it's appropriate to pay him $20. Because then you come back and you have those hours all over again.
Mhm.
If he can do 80%, then I don't think the clerk necessarily needs to make up the entire 10 hours. She might only need to make up 2, because the assistant clerk would be serving the other 8. And I'm just using the demo hours.
Yes,
as an
yes, yes.
Example
Understood.
that you used. So I think in order to like make a reasonable decision here, we would need more information about what duties the assistant clerk can actually do. And I recognize it would be approximate, because what the duties are in any given week change, right?
Oh.
I'm assuming.
Daily, hourly.
Of course,
Yes.
of course. So
Mhm.
I recognize that it's hard to put a number, but we need at least some type of ballpark of
As a percentage.
Okay,
what percentage of your duties that person could serve as an assistant clerk. Because if we're gonna pay him as an assistant clerk,
okay.
does that make sense?
Yeah, done.
And the good thing about Gary, if he doesn't know how to do something, when he used to be in my office when I was on vacation, he would tell them, I'll take your name, number, Terry, get back to you. But he can do like dog licensing, get the mail, do the agenda, post the agendas, things like that. There's a lot of things. I mean, he's busy the whole time he's here. He's learning, but like he said today, I don't know how to be a town clerk, but I can, like, we work together all the
Like on
time,
TV.
so, but he's intelligent enough that he's not gonna give people the wrong information. He can do a birth certificate, he can make a copy. I don't know if he can sign it because he's not the clerk,
Right. So there are some signatory things that he's probably restricted on.
exactly.
Notary public, he's restricted on,
Yeah,
but we've got a TA who's got a stamp.
Yeah.
So,
So he's,
if you could come up with what you would honestly say over the course of the year, what percentage of the work that you do, he cannot do
okay,
legally,
Mhm.
or just because he hasn't been trained to that.
Right.
I think that would help us figure out what the pay scale would be. And then that would also help us figure out that if he works for 10 or 8 hours, that's kind of the equivalent of 10. Or 6, sorry, the other way.
Right,
So that there's still a couple of hours in
That
that,
you would need
that
to
could need to make up, so that it isn't 100, because he's not doing 100%.
Right.
And that would probably help formulate a
More
policy
important
that
policy.
allows for some flexibility in each department's assistance, not the knowledge that the assistant carries in that department. It may also behoove us to think that, okay, if we've got somebody who can only do 60%, that perhaps we offer training to get that higher up.
right.
Mhm.
Because the better trained we are, the more capable we are to get stuff done.
Would concur.
This is information that Sophia and I have actually both requested several weeks ago, but we haven't received yet. Sophia requested it directly from Gary, and through Justin, and I requested it from the clerk.
What would be, how long do you think it would take you to put together that list of duties and give us an approximate percentage?
Well, do we need a list of actual duties, or do we just need like he can do 80% of the job? Do we need to know what it is, or what he can't do?
This is a good question.
I don't know, it's hard to put figures, basically the point being, we're looking at maybe someone can keep, and I think this used to be the arrangement. Someone kept the office open while you were on vacation.
Yes, and.
Okay, and so
Mhm.
that may eliminate the need for some of the makeup hours. So maybe if there's 10 hours that you take vacation, and if you have staff who's willing and able to work those hours, maybe you make up 4 hours the next week of makeup work. It's hard to micromanage to some degree to this level of figuring out exactly what those percentages are and what that figure is, but maybe we can come to an agreement that if you're gone for 1 week, that's 19.75 hours, that if town clerk staff can cover those 17.75 of office hours, it takes you 5 hours the next week to make up what was slipped through the cracks. Or maybe it's, I don't know, it's hard to work through.
I just don't wanna, have Gary embarrassed again, because when he worked here before, he didn't know everything, and he knew, and people, and one of the selectmen came to me and said they had so many complaints, they didn't want Gary back in the office when I wasn't here. And I said, Gary, you're sitting there answering the phone, taking, messages, answering people's questions, telling when I'll be back, and I thought he did an amazing job. One of the selectmen told me he had so many complaints, he wanted my office closed when I wasn't here. So then, you get mixed feelings about, now we have a different board and they feel differently.
And wasn't here at the time of the complaints. I know that when I spoke with Gary a while back, this was a couple months ago at least.
Yeah.
He said he was willing to do it, but he wanted a better wage consistent with an assistant clerk. And I'm fine with that as long as he can fulfill the duties
Right,
of an
no, I
assistant
understand
clerk.
what you're saying.
Right, yeah. I'm okay with paying someone for their job as long as they can do the job.
That's good.
But I think when is a reasonable time to ask for that? Like, how long would you need to prepare the information we need?
Well, I'm working on the boards and commissions, so, by the end of the month.
What exactly,
What's the today?
today's the 28th.
Oh, no.
What exactly are we looking for? Because I've already requested from Terry a list of Gary's duties and responsibilities,
Yeah.
which she's working on.
Okay.
So the other question is, I guess it's
To me, that
a
would be part of
plan
it.
for when Terry goes on vacation.
Mhm.
What office hour coverage looks like and what makeup time afterwards looks like,
Okay.
right?
If you wanna come sit with me, you worked for me for like months, so we could sit down and remember what you did before you
Yeah.
became a selectman.
I don't think I ever would have held, I don't know. I don't know, other than it seems like we need a comprehensive plan that takes into account budgeting.
Mhm.
What the strengths and weaknesses of different staff are, what their capabilities are, and what keeps the office open, while also making sure at the end of the day, all the work gets done without going over budget.
Mhm. We can work on it.
We need to come up with a wage for town clerk staff that's covering the office, we would need to, but I really think it comes as a plan all at once, right?
I would agree, and I think that, we would not be able to come up with a wage unless we have a sense of what duties he could perform.
October 12th, we can come up with a plan.
Oh, yeah,
Fine.
'cause
Okay,
I'll be,
by October 12th?
How are you gonna address the current request for time off? That you're also requesting that time.
So,
That's why this was on the
Okay,
agenda
right.
today.
so I don't have that in front of me.
That will happen momentarily.
Yeah, okay. So you've got a request for time off coming up?
in October, the first, Wednesday and Friday in October.
So that's next week.
So what
Shockingly
was
enough.
your plan on the office being open?
Well, always before it was closed, because I was told to close it when I wasn't here.
By who? Just curious.
Well, the other selectmen before you guys,
Okay,
and,
okay.
so, I didn't have a plan because it was always closed.
Okay. Well,
So now,
No.
So
Knowing-
the current
knowing
plan
that
was
we
that
like
it would
it
be
open.
closed and you would work double hours the following week.
well,
Was that, I'm just
to
asking.
make up my.
Right.
Yes.
This is, there's an updated form that should be used.
so getting the flavor of the board's request that it would be nice if the office was open as many hours as
Okay.
perhaps it could be.
And like if there's people want to early vote, he can do that. He can do early voting,
Good, good.
he's.
So that's next Wednesday and Friday.
Yes. Mhm.
So what we need to figure out is, it's really too late for this particular one, because what we need to figure out is if Gary's available October
right.
5th and October 7th, what we would pay him to keep the office open.
Well, the money's in the budget, so it's really just a matter of, Melissa said that she would get those figures from surrounding towns.
Which I gave you, 15 to 20.
What if we
Okay.
offer Gary 20 to keep the office open on the 5th and the 7th?
I'm fine with that.
I'm
How do
fine
you
with
feel
that.
about that coming out of your budget?
Um,
I mean, it's like $100 if you think about it in the overall scheme of the budget.
that's
He's
fine,
got 20 hours.
that's fine.
And then that would leave some money, because he could be, some of that money could come out of the town clerk's staff account,
Yes,
but the difference between what he's currently paid and 20 would come out of the town clerk account, but then you could use, if you need makeup time for whatever slipped through the cracks, you could work that makeup time the following week.
that's fine, yeah.
And you know what might be helpful, since this is upcoming and we're trying to craft a bigger policy?
Mhm.
If he can keep a record of what he does do, and you can keep a record of what you had to make up,
Okay.
that would be a start. It
That would
would
be a
give us
great
a
start.
really good example of
Yeah.
what's involved.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just a snapshot, because if it happened in March, it would be different, but a snapshot's better than no shot at all.
Mhm.
No, that's good.
So I would move that the board offer Gary Shaw as town clerk staff $20 an hour to keep the town clerk's office open for the regular hours on Wednesday, October 5th and Friday, October 7th, while Perry's on vacation. And then,
Pending his availability.
yeah, offering this to him, and then Terry can calculate what amount of funds are available for her to make up anything that slipped through the cracks while Gary is working.
That's fine.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay, second motion. Any further discussion or comment? Okay, I'll call a vote. Susan?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes,
Justin, yes. Motion carries. So we will reach out to Gary and tell him what we are
ask
offering.
him. Tell him and ask him.
Tell him what we're offering him and ask him if he is
Cover
willing,
those
is
as best he
able.
can. I mean, he may not be able to do it every hour.
But even 5 hours would be better than no hours.
Because we'll
Yeah.
post them.
Yeah.
At least they'll be posted.
Posted,
People will
right.
know.
Yeah, any hours that he can't, we'll put on the calendar like we usually do, just office close.
Right.
Sure.
Do we wanna do 4 also, since I think that.
I think that is 4.
No, that was 3, that was time off request.
So you're looking at my report.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My report corresponds to some of that, but
No, that was
I
4.
think you want item
No.
10 on the agenda.
Item 10 on the agenda, sorry. No, it wasn't 10. Your item 4 is part-time employees putting in for more than weekly approved hours.
That's not for Terry, that's part of my report.
Oh, okay,
So
sorry.
Yeah.
The next
Select
one
board
would,
agenda.
the next one would be,
Well, the question is whether we
number
wanna,
6 on my report.
Westford.
Let's stick with the agenda report since I have that one.
is there anything else to discuss with Terry while she is here? There's 9 and 10 in new business, but I think in some ways those are probably being addressed by
The
referring to the HR director.
I agree with that.
Well, 11, 9 and, is 11, say mine's 10 and 11 right now, because I move things around. Is one of them the weekly report? Because that has already been vetted
Yeah,
by,
10 is
that's
regular
already been
report.
vetted by HR, and she is fully in support of it.
Number 10.
The regular reports from the town clerk's office.
Good.
And then the discussion of processes to improve communication, she also, is in support of that. So it's already been discussed with her today, so that we can keep things moving.
Yeah, so we'll get that report and
I'm giving you the report, she's already signed off on it.
okay, I understand what you're saying to us.
So item 10 on our today's.
The way you
agenda-
said it was like,
Yeah.
you-
Item 10 on the today's agenda is regular reports from town clerk's office, which is this item 10 form. Because remember Terry had said in the meeting last week that she used to come and tell the select board.
Yep.
And I thought it would be great to have a written version of that.
Mhm.
So, we came up with this form that Sophia looked at and thinks would work. It should be fairly quick to fill out, it could be done once a week, and we would have a written record of the kinds of things that the clerk is doing and about how long they take her. And that will be a really useful thing when it comes time for the annual reviews.
Yes.
So when you used to do your weekly reports, what format were they in?
I would send the selectmen an email, and I'd say my accomplishments for this week and my goals for the next. And I'd just give an overview of everything that I had, because back then there was a lot of back work to do. And like the little grants I wrote for the town clerk's office and how the elections went, like it was, I didn't say like I made 15 copies of death certificates, you know. I would just give an overview of what we did for the week, and I'd also add what my assistant did. At the time.
That would be my only concern with this form is there's something to data like this and there's something to free form.
To a narrative.
Yeah, in some ways, but I know that there's comment boxes in here. Like, is Terry gonna count her emails?
No,
To look in her sent box and see how many, like 100 emails, and how is she gonna?
I think they're quantifiable. I mean, I think, you know, each day when you come in, when she's here 2 days a week, if she comes in and sees she has 6 voicemails, you put 6. If she has 100 emails when she opens it up that day, you put 100.
So is it inbox emails or sent emails?
Inbox emails. I don't think you need to complicate this, Justin. This is to get a feel for what's going on in that office, so when it comes time for budget time, and as well as to help me be a better supervisor and, you know, keep things out of the HR office, and for you guys to be informed. This, it's not unusual.
and a lot of these, I mean, a lot of them are seasonal. Like, obviously, you're not doing a street census all year round. You're not doing the annual town meeting minutes all year round. You're not doing, elections right? Like, sometimes there's gonna be a bunch of hours. Sometimes it's just gonna be empty because it's not relevant this week.
But the census I work on year round, like, yes, the census is year round, the filing, like boards and commissions, you know, there's things.
Some is every week, I get it.
And sometimes I'm doing a death certificate and somebody comes in for a dog license, so it's like, I never do the same thing 2 days in a row.
Right, but you know that you did, this week, you did 2 dog licenses.
Yeah.
1 DBA.
Yeah.
And 1 death or 0 deaths or 1 marriage or whatever, right? I mean, that part, that's easy to quantify, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
The things that are probably harder to quantify is how much time you spent on the street census, I don't know, I'm making something up.
But I think you can estimate. I mean, I can't do my job either and say, oh, I spent 6 hours on select work, because some days you guys send me a whole ton of stuff and some days you don't. But I think you can give a fair average of, you know, this week I spent quite a bit of time on filing, you know, because I needed to.
Good, yeah, no, it's good.
We're not asking for, you know, Terry to be
By the minute.
and, you know, I think, you know, this lets us know what's going on in the office, what she may need help with, what projects she's having difficulty with, what projects she's excelling at.
And I would presume, like, as you're fixing the boards and commissions list, it's gonna be a larger number right now than it will be once that's up to date and all you're doing is maintaining,
Yes.
for example.
Mhm.
All right, good.
That's
So,
approval.
yeah, do you want?
I'll send her a memo with
I haven't seen it. And see, the thing about it is any census is out of another budget. There's $1,500 that Gary and I work above and beyond town clerk.
Mhm.
But you still want it out here?
Yes, this is just what your office is.
We're
This
trying to get a
is
sense
not
of what's
money.
happening in there,
Okay.
not what line item it's coming
Okay.
from.
Um,
That's what it's, cause otherwise we'd have to have the election on a different thing also, right, so,
If I think of anything else,
yeah,
I'll
definitely.
add it to them.
We would love to have those additions. This was, you know, I took this off of a bunch of different town clerk job descriptions, but that doesn't mean it's complete,
Mhm.
I would assume.
that's number 10. I think Scott's on his way back.
Was there anything else we need quick feedback on before we let her go back to work?
Well, it's number 9, the issue of
Great.
direct report. Which, I understand that Sophia's already considered this, but I think it should be reviewed in conjunction with everything that Sophia is reviewing in terms of a comprehensive, forward-looking plan.
That's fine. Yeah, her only comment was that if it was going to be her and I versus you and I, that she just wanted to run that by council first. She would prefer, I think, that it be you and I. But it doesn't, that I think that she has acknowledged that it does seem that the current system is not working.
Yeah, it has its, I forget, I think today we acknowledged that I forgot to forward something last week. Alright, I do think unless there's objection that the process of communication and direct reporting, I think should come with a comprehensive plan from Sophia.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put out there for us to ponder in the intervening weeks, and I did discuss this with Sophia today, so I just wanna keep you guys in the loop that it strikes me that, as Scott alluded to this last week, that to improve communication and speed things up and make sure fewer things get lost in the cracks, reopening written communication between the town administrator and the clerk's office should be something we strongly consider. And I would put forth that the advantage of written communication is that it's completely documentable and verifiable. If there are problems, it's easy to see what they are and to deal with them. We now have HR. We have a person who can deal with issues as they arise. It doesn't have to take months. It doesn't have to be difficult. It can be dealt with expediently. We are in the process of updating the harassment policy, but we have someone to handle complaints even in the interim. We've already dealt with the sexual harassment policy, and I think within the next 2 weeks, we'll have the harassment policy ironed out. But it would mean that there was expedient direct communication, and if there's a problem, we'll deal with it. It's kind of to everybody's benefit, because if there's misbehavior, we'll see it in a verifiable form. And I think that at this point, the system we have running has become burden on the town, and it's causing a lot of inefficiency and a lot of frustration and repeated issues. And I don't see a way to get, like you even said this, I don't see a way to get around it. So we can, I'm not saying we decide this tonight, I just want to put it out there that I think that this would be a way to reduce the amount of slow communication and miscommunication and failed communication, where documents are not being looked at because of their author.
Alright. Is that everything? Tara, do you have any questions or comments?
What are you asking?
Well, we're not making, I don't think we're making a decision
Oh.
tonight, but
No, we're not
the
making-
issue,
okay.
the thing is with you know how past couple months, has it even been a couple months? Past few weeks, maybe months, I don't know, time flies. You know, I've been the direct report in that everything from Melissa to you and vice versa goes through me.
Right.
And then sometimes it works and sometimes, like, I forgot a thing or two,
Mhm.
like the new hire paperwork. And so we're just considering, I think, like me personally, we're considering the accommodation and finding a way to accommodate the accommodation so that we can have thorough and timely communication.
Mhm.
There's another example that I would use, which is that, Terry said that she doesn't get communication regarding appointees. But when we appoint someone, every time they're sent either an email or a letter concerning that appointment, there's a copy of that at the clerk's office. But if the clerk's choosing not to look at communication that comes from the TA's office, then she wouldn't have written documentation because it's being sent to her, but she's not looking at it. Or it needs to be sent to you, so you can then forward it to her, which seems like kind of unnecessary. Is there really a reason to send an appointment letter to you so you can forward it to the clerk?
And the only reason why is because I was told to not communicate.
I understand that.
So-
So I'm not saying we need to alter the policy, I'm
Okay.
suggesting. I'm
So
suggesting.
what we're doing is we're looking at this accommodation, but I think unless there's real opposition, we're gonna refer, and the HR director was the one who came up with the direct report idea in the first place. And we're gonna refer review of it, in conjunction with everything that you're dealing with the HR director with. And then go from there with a comprehensive plan for going forward. But for right now, we're not gonna make any decisions on it.
Right. I was just putting it out there for you guys to think about,
Alright,
since I can't talk to anybody outside me.
So what do I do, communicate with Melissa?
just keep going, how we've been going, cause we're not making any decisions tonight.
Cause today I did, I had to,
Yeah, well, I forgot to forward the new hire paperwork, I think, and,
Who's the new hire?
um,
Oh, yeah, Laurie, okay, never mind.
no, people on my, election workers.
Okay.
So Melissa told me how to do it and I thanked her.
yeah, and I had forgotten
Well
to
It's
forward.
okay,
But for right now, more or less, we're just staying the course, and then in a couple weeks, we're going, in the whole, with everything that we're dealing with, we're gonna hopefully have a comprehensive plan so that the communication, and it may stay the same, but it sounds like it's probably gonna change in some way. The
and I don't
accommodation.
mind if it changes.
Okay.
I don't,
I had the impression from a number of past emails that you might object to it, but I'm pleased to hear that you don't.
because today I needed those
New hire people.
new hire paperwork and I was able to go on the website through Melissa and get it.
Great.
So,
Okay.
Alright, thank you for joining us.
you're welcome. Thanks.
So that ticks off 4, 9, and 10.
9 and 10, yep. And there's really nothing new on 5.
Yeah.
So, the issue with Kimama that everyone brought up raised some other issues. And I know that there are some ongoing issues that the building inspector is dealing with, that the fire chief is dealing with. But Scott correctly pointed out, that might not really under our purview. The only thing that would be under our purview would be the noise issue, because the town doesn't have a noise ordinance. Do we wanna get this off our table? Do we wanna draft a letter to them about the concerns? Do we think it's not significant enough? Do we wanna invite the director to a meeting, even if it's remote? What do we think we should do so we can get this off our agenda from week to week?
Yeah, so you understand the issue probably as well as anybody. What Scott's point that if it's a fire inspector issue or a building inspector issue, that just is, it's their office, not ours,
Right.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We should get back to the people who raised the concerns to us. And if the fact of the matter is that there's nothing for us to do, we can tell them. We looked into it and there's nothing for us to do. We could also tell them, the planning board, would a noise ordinance be a zoning?
No.
It would be a select board issue.
Yeah, what,
If it was an ordinance, yeah, the bylaw's gonna be zoning.
So,
no, it
How-
wouldn't be
And I
zoning,
think
because it's not about where you live, it would be an overall, I think it would be an ordinance.
I think, didn't Donna explain that we can't have ordinances are for, I feel like this came up in a meeting and someone asked what the difference was between an ordinance and a bylaw. I think
yes,
you were there.
it was
and
at
she
the
said-
bylaw, it was at the joint meeting with the bylaw review committee.
And an ordinance is not applicable here, right?
I'm not gonna
Because,
I'm gonna, let me find it, I'll see if I can find it.
I'm not gonna
Alright.
sign off on that, but we had a joint meeting with the bylaw review committee, and they were to the best of my recollection, confused why sometimes it was ordinance, sometimes it was bylaw.
Yeah.
And I think Melissa's
I'm
right
gonna
that,
find it right now.
To do with size.
Could well be.
city versus
So
town.
they asked, what's the difference between,
Okay. But
This
I
was
think
when
there
she
is
was
something
here.
we can do. We can write the owners of Camp Kimama,
Mama, I think it
Kimama,
is too.
Kimama, Camp Kimama, and, ask them to come in and talk to us.
Mhm.
And just state that, we've had some of your close neighbors come in with some concerns about the past season and going forward. Would you like to come in and sit with us and wow. That's what they did at Hume.
Mhm.
They came in and introduced themselves.
That was right.
Same thing what happened with Kuchar's sports camp.
Yep.
They came in after we requested they came in. And, they changed around, but they did what they had to do.
Yeah.
And they did it without any,
Fuss. Yeah.
yeah,
What's the,
it's really, we don't have any leverage. So
Yeah.
when you have no leverage, all you can do is smile and be a good neighbor and lead by example.
so on June 29th, when you guys met with town council, it was asked, what is the difference between an ordinance and a bylaw? And she said that an ordinance is for a city and a bylaw is for a town. Monterey will only be adopting bylaws.
So it annoys, bylaw would be a bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, because zoning bylaws are about what you're allowed to do in particular districts and it's about what you can build. It's not about how you can
Alright.
behave, because it's not a use. The other issue about whether they can be year round, that's definitely the planning
Yeah.
board, because that's a zoning thing, but noise would be everywhere, because it's not about a particular area.
So I wanna come to a resolution on this Camp Kimama,
Mhm.
concerns. What do we do between this meeting and next meeting or next one?
Do we wanna reach out to them and ask?
Yeah,
them
we
to
can
come in?
invite them to
Just
a
state that
future
some
meeting.
members of your community came in with concerns about noise, camping, the whole rundown.
Do you want a motion?
No, if there's general consensus, I will
Yeah.
invite to a future meeting the owners of Camp Kimama Half Moon, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
If we're gonna do it,
Yep.
but that will be the next step.
That would be the next one.
Okay.
Alright.
That takes care of 5, we're on to new business.
Alright.
West Road, private road maintenance invoice from the highway department, so this issue is somewhat resolved
Yeah, it's almost totally
Yay.
resolved.
today,
Yeah.
but I mean, there are a couple remaining questions, which is, how do we, so there was, the road was spilling out onto
Yes.
Pixley Road 57, and the highway department did some work, recommended potentially invoicing for work done in July and September. The private landowners and there was also complaint that it trashed the road, but the highway department's, from the town's point of view, we were, maintaining our road, which is 57, from this road spilling out onto ours. And since then, the private landowner has actually taken it, or a couple of the owners on that road took it into their own hands and redid the road. So I'm assuming we don't want to send them the invoice from the highway department for the previous work that was done, since the goodwill has been expressed with them fixing the road.
That seems wise.
Do we wanna invoice them for $1,500?
The people that live on the street.
I think the idea being that if you have a private road that keeps spilling out onto a public road, you may invoice them as a way to.
I would invoice Sean Tucker. He's the owner of the property. Why are the people that live there responsible for it?
They're all owners of the property, it's a question,
They're not
He's-
joint
he
tenants
owns
in
it.
common there. He owns the road, they own the property, they have rights of way over the driveway.
I guess so, cause he went ahead and
Cause
fixed
he
it.
went and fixed it.
I will put forward the following, there is an existing bylaw about private ways. However, 2 things, number 1, that was put forth under MGL chapter 40, section 6N, 6E, which got repealed. Also, it was a way for people who lived on a common way to ask the town for help, and that the town could bill them for helping them if they asked. However, under 6N, if we wanted to put on a bylaw to give us some coverage in this instance, 6N would allow for us to craft a bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, but a regular bylaw, so that's on our watch. To craft a bylaw that gives us a whole bunch of options that we can choose to include, that would allow us to say, if a private way is causing harm to a public way or to the land of abutters who aren't members of the private way usage, and the town is in a situation where it has to repair either the public way or modify the private way to prevent further damage, we can actually bill them for that problem. Because the West Road situation is resolved, but Jim tells me there are a bunch of them
Sure.
in the town that are constantly an issue. My goal would be that we could then, if we had such a thing, we could then inform everybody, so that what we want is for them to maintain their roads, and we don't have to do anything, right?
So my,
Yeah, we shouldn't be spending money keeping our road clear due to negligence of a private owner
Correct. I agree.
and Dayton, right?
Yeah, right, but
If
we
we
have no
do-
recourse right now.
So let me say something else. I should probably recuse myself from this issue on West Road because my lead employee lives on West Road.
Okay,
So I really need to stop talking about West Road and who should be billed and who shouldn't be.
okay.
You bill the hell out of them all if you want. So,
okay, so, yes, I think it's good that we are maintaining our roads and private roads are maintained. I would consider adopting, is this accepting a portion of MGL, or is this?
No, we have to craft it because MGL, like, it's no big deal, we go home and look up chapter 46 and it comes right up, but it has like a list, like A through G of things that can be addressed. You don't have to address all of them, and it doesn't tell you what you have to
What'd you
say
say,
there.
46?
Chapter 40, section 6N.
Okay, so we'll look into that as far as going forward, but for right now,
That's it, yeah.
I think, unless there's any opposition, we're not going to bill the private owners of West Road because they have taken remedial action to fix the problem. Does that work, Susan?
Absolutely.
Okay. Item 7 is town administrator items, and there are 7 of them.
From your roundtables. I did explain it in item 1, I didn't want to summarize I can in my report. I did talk again with Sophia, and she told me I should also add that making them mandatory is also a perfect opportunity for training the department heads as well, in addition to the things I listed.
So who, and I'm having this discussion with Sophia right now as to who is being reviewed as an employee. Who is a department head? Because it'd be helpful if the accountant is involved in some of these discussions, because I know many, if not all departments work with the accountant in some capacity. And sometimes how they're interacting with the accountant, things come up. But they're not a department head because they're a contracted service.
That's what I would say, yes, I mean.
Whereas I think there's other people that we would call department heads, like the building inspector, just for example, that there is the occasional thing where he may relate to other departments, but for the most part, it seems like what's going on in the building inspector's office doesn't relate so much to what's going on at the highway department, for instance.
It's pretty independent.
So I guess what I'm getting at is I understand the point of gathering, most of the leaders, but who exactly does that mean? And I think that certain people who may not be department heads, it would be really valuable for them to be there. The other question that I have is, if we're gonna make it mandatory, if we have someone on a Wednesday, Thursday schedule and someone on a Tuesday, Friday, how are we gonna find time that we can say, okay, this is mandatory, you have to be there? What if they have another job or something? And
If we had a list of all the people and there was a time that they were all available, that wouldn't be an issue. Do we need to make a list of the people that would be the most relevant instead of just calling it department head? Because there might be people that aren't, like you pointed out, I don't know. Would it make sense to have
So I
Don Chico
disagree
there?
with Justin that I think actually, Jim and Don do have things in common. I mean, there have been several times, not as often as other departments, where they've been in my offices and we have discussed projects going on, you know, I mean, Don could have a building project that, is causing damage to the road because of the trucks that are coming through, or, you know, runoff is being caused, by something that they've done with the foundation or something. So there are definitely, I mean, do I think everybody that's in the room is going to, understand and
Benefit.
and benefit, thank you, it's late.
I get it.
And benefit from what each department says, no, but Don may benefit from something that comes up about employee benefits, or, you know, the Maya programs that we run, or that there's, you know, there's a bunch of things. So I will gladly make you a list of who we envision coming there.
the other, and look, I see the value in getting all the heads together and discussing goals, and I wonder if what I said last meeting was that if you force people to be at a meeting that they have no interest being at, and they really don't have something on the agenda, it's worse than them not even showing up. But then I've been thinking about it, and I was thinking maybe a quarterly meeting that's mandatory, and we haven't had one, but all boards meeting, like a quarterly meeting where, you know, that's mandatory. And then there's also monthly meetings, and maybe that's more meaningful if it's quarterly, and maybe the mandatory would mean a little bit more and people could work their schedules around a little bit more. And I mean, so if they're really, and because I know there are part-time employees who may work 10, 20 hours on certain days, what happens when we have an outreach worker on a Tuesday, Thursday schedule and the clerk on a Wednesday, Friday? How do we find it? And there's daytime employees and there's people who have full-time jobs and come in the evening. What time do we pick that satisfies everybody if we're gonna make it mandatory?
That is interesting, it's just like select board meetings, you know? You know, your time doesn't fit everybody's schedule, but if you want to improve communications and you wanna, work for the best of the town, you make arrangements, right?
Maybe we should start with a list of who the people are and see are you willing to try to see if, given their schedules on the people on the list, if there is a time that will work? If there is a time that will work, we shouldn't poo-poo it because there isn't. It might not be a bad, I don't think your quarterly idea is bad, even if they're monthly, to only make quarterly ones mandatory. For one, and I don't think it's a bad idea to have at least something mandatory, because sometimes people are just like, ugh, I just don't wanna go to another meeting, and they might find that it's more useful than they thought it would be, and there's a commitment to keep the meetings short.
Yeah, like for instance.
Not like our meetings.
I didn't say it.
I'm right there.
So, for instance, like the email migration, we could be like, we have a meeting, email migration. Anyway, that's that, we're gonna come up with a list, that's that for that agenda item. The next one's schoolhouse insurance renewal from Cabot Risk Strategies.
Yes, I believe I have some stuff to fill in on that, but if you approve it, I will fill it all out and have Justin come in and sign, or either for you to sign.
That building is in a state, and I think we do need to talk about that building at some point, but it's not tonight. Yes, but can we put it, all I was saying is, can we put it on a future agenda, please?
Please, yes.
That was what I was asking.
I
I was asking for that.
I would move that.
Fungus, wet rot, dry rot, bacteria, yeah.
All of the things.
Move that we renew the insurance for the schoolhouse.
What's it costing us?
And that you don't want to include the terrorism coverage.
Is this the best, is it being insured as a schoolhouse? Or
Being insured as a vacant building, and this is the only.
Okay, alright, so I was gonna say, it's certain that there is
$2,047 a year without the terrorism, 2,147 if you get the terrorism. We do not
Well,
get
you
it.
know, we won't get it.
The
We gotta
state of
move
that
it.
building.
Alright, I'm
is-
gonna amend my motion to,
Okay.
renewing the insurance for the schoolhouse without the terrorism
Second.
coverage.
So, yeah,
Second, is there any further discussion or comment? There being none, we'll call a vote. Susan?
yes.
Yes, yes.
Justin, yes, motion carries. You will sign.
I'll leave it in the box for you to sign.
The next item is C, Public Streetlights National Grid Conversion Program.
It seemed like it was a good idea.
So there,
Because I looked at the chart that you sent, and I could not figure out what it was supposed to be.
I know, it was very confusing, but let's see if I can get what she said right. So this is our current, like, this is what we're paying in the orange, and it's these right here, so there are 12 that are currently,
52,507 annual bill.
right, one of them has the lumen or something here.
Annual luminaire charge, that's the cost.
So the total cost is
So the
12
total-
at 1.6 and 10 at.
So that's what we're paying
$3,800.
in bills right now for these 22 lights. So if we converted to the 3K 15 watt, this is the numbers, the savings.
So we save 1,378. Is there any upfront cost?
No, so
Okay.
it's a free conversion program, and as a matter of fact, if you do it, they're gonna give us a $1,300 credit on our bill once they're all installed.
And they're gonna look a little bit less
Right.
yellow.
Yes, so she said right now, these are like cones,
Yeah.
right? They're gonna be flat. And it's gonna be a brighter, it's gonna look brighter, cause it's a white light versus the yellow light out there.
It's a
And which-
more restricted
But it is,
flood pattern.
right, it is dark sky friendly.
Yeah.
So which select board member is gonna receive all the complaints from the public on this one?
So they're gonna
yeah,
do, so Jim and I have proposed with her that they do it in stages, so maybe it won't be like, oh my God, we got, like, they have a weekend crew that can come through and maybe bang out three the next weekend, so like, if you may drive through and you may just go,
Save us money, more efficient, I would move that we convert the streetlights to the
Second.
National Grid Conversion Program. Seconded motion, is there any discussion or comment further? There being none, call vote. Susan?
yeah.
Scott?
No, I mean, I agree.
Your vote is
No,
yes.
Yeah, I'm voting yes.
You're voting
I
yes.
thought you said, is there any other conversation?
And Justin will vote yes, and the motion carries, so we'll convert those over. Good. D, part-time employees putting in for more than the weekly approved hours. I'm gonna recuse myself on this one because it
So
directly
we
relates to-
actually, the problem with your mother, it's only a couple of departments that have had that, but your mother, I spoke with Lori and her yesterday, and it's all been worked out for the community
Okay.
center.
Then I don't have a conflict of interest.
Right, community center is approved for 10 hours a week, and they had put her office hours as 10 hours. It was agreed that she's gonna post office hours for 5.5, and the remaining 4.5 will be discretionary, allowing her to do her accounting and her emails when she sees fit, and if happens to be a weekend event, and she's gonna be very cognizant of not going over the 10.
But, all these departments understand that their budget is for the year and that there's no overing. You don't just go over because it's only January.
Well, that's why I'm bringing this to your attention, so I'm bringing it to your attention because it was originally the community center, the town clerk's office is also the other one, so for instance, the assistant with just the town, with the assistant clerk duties, not, census or anything else, should be 14 hours a week, cause it's approved for 7
Okay, great.
7 a week, right, 14 a pay period. And the last one was 16.5, and if he comes in on Friday, I believe it's gonna be over again for this pay period.
So doesn't that still just come out of her budget, and when the budget's empty, she's, pooched
That's
for money?
how it should be, but if,
So my
so I'm
budget is,
I'm just asking the board how you guys want me to handle it. So for instance,
I would suggest we redraft the letter as we did before to all the departments that have line items that they have to stay within their budget. That there's no, at the end of the year, oh, we need 20 grand because you previously had other people come in and work. I
Well,
mean,
so, and the
not
question being,
necessarily frivolously, but
so the question being, what has been happening at the end of the year? Are there large reserve fund transfer requests? Is this related to the new time clock at all, or these people aren't using the time clock?
Well, the other, Gary's not using the time clock, Terry submits those hours, but I'm getting him on next. I'm looking for an answer, so when payroll is submitted on a Monday, if a department is approved for, let's say, 7 hours a week, and it comes in at 10, am I supposed to approve the timesheet and we deal with it later, or am I supposed to say, you're only being approved for 7 right now because you didn't get pre-approval to work extra hours?
Question, is the money based on somebody doing hours, or is it based upon, I mean, does it matter to us if they put in 13 this week and 8 the next?
I guess
And they were only
it's-
supposed to have 10? I mean, at the end of the year, when their money runs dry, who are they gonna have to do their staffing?
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that they need to be told, if you've got a budget for 7 hours, that's it. No more of these 12. I mean, where is that gonna come from? It comes from it now, because there's still money in the fund.
Right.
But when that fund starts drying up, and it's still got a month to go,
So basically, you're suggesting a memo to all, I guess, would it be department heads?
then anybody who puts in.
Reminding them that budgets are annual and that they themselves are responsible for monitoring how they're spending their budgeted money
And where they are.
and where they are in their budget for the year, with an eye to not allowing their budget to run out prematurely and ending up without money to pay their staff. Would
Yeah.
that sum it up?
Well, I'd be interested to see what years prior are there departments that come
That are
thousands of dollars short. And if there aren't, for the most part, the departments, have largely stayed the same. They're probably aware that if they do 12, then they gotta do 8 the next week and make up for it, and have some flexibility, as long as they have the whole picture in mind of the whole year.
Yes, so I guess maybe let me explain it a little more. So once everybody's on the time clock system, so like, I'm just gonna take the town clerks for example, because it happened with Gary. So when both Terry and Gary are on the time clock system, once they fill out the time clock for the pay period, it comes to me and I approve it. So I wanna know, am I supposed to approve it when they went to the budget meetings and said, Gary can only work, we're putting in for 7 hours a week. If he's putting in for 8, 9, 10, do I approve it? And just remind the department head, you were approved for 7 hours a week, so make sure, at the end of the year, you realize you're not gonna have him for the last couple of weeks. Or-
Then you'll be,
Because I don't wanna get in trouble when someone says, well, Melissa, you approved the timesheets when they were over, why didn't you say something then? So
That's
I'm
right.
covering my.
I would say it now in our letter.
Okay, so I'll be
We
glad to
used to
send out a
send those out
memo
all the
saying.
time. I mean, all the time we sent those out to remind companies to
I'm
do it.
being careful, I don't
Oh,
want
I
to be
think
accused of anything.
you're absolutely right. I agree that we should send out a letter. telling people,
I mean,
your budget is your budget. You requested it, you live with it.
the advantage of doing it that way is it allows them to decide when they wanna
Flexibility,
use
yes.
more, and it gives them flexibility.
Sure.
But it lets them know, we did notice, we want you to just keep this in mind, at the end of the year, that your budget's your budget.
I mean, I remember having spreadsheets
Like
on
that?
all these departments.
Yeah.
Where we knew exactly.
Well, they get
Didn't Barbara
those.
used to come in all the time with those?
Yeah, the departments get those every month, and so I will send them,
Yeah,
I
but
just,
those,
again, I
do
was
we get?
covering my CYA, I was covering my, took it as.
No, awesome, good pickup. But what I'm saying is, we used to get them on select board years ago, where we knew all where people were, and we could, I can't remember who used to
Monthly
give them those
expense
sheets.
reports? Monthly,
So
like
I'm
a
waiting
month,
for
like a
can't
month,
wait for my
we're
expense.
talking like a monthly
Yeah.
expense report.
Basically like a ROSA working operating.
Checking in, this is where we are for the year.
Okay, so we're good.
Okay,
Okay,
We're good on that.
there's consensus. Okay, the next one is Pat Morse, who is doing a good job at the swap shop. And this is a request to make a formal motion. And I will move that Pat Norris work at the swap shop under the senior tax work-off abatement program beginning the 1st of October this year.
Second.
Is there any further discussion or comment?
Only that I would like, can someone give me is the senior tax work-off abatement program exactly what it sounds like?
Yes.
Is there anything I should know about it that I might not know based on its name?
So workers can make up to $1,500 per fiscal year. They have to be over the age of 60, they have to own a property for at least 1 year in Monterey, only one abatement per resident.
And does this still need to go through like the assessor's office?
So it will, yeah, so I'll let her know, she'll track her hours, and it's done on a fiscal year, I believe, yes, July 1 through June 30th, so, and it's up to a maximum of $1,500, so.
Melissa, when was that enacted? I seem to recall that.
Yeah, I wanna say like,
15?
that sounds good. This form says 18, so it was probably in that vicinity, this could be an updated one though.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, there's a second motion, is there any further discussion or comment? There being none, we'll call a vote, Susan?
Yes?
Scott?
Yes.
Justin, yes, motion carries. Thank you, Pat, for your work at the swap shop.
Already down to 6?
Green Communities update.
Yes, so essentially, I've been trying to get in touch with BRPC to get this, the next step that needed to be done after we had all the, energy audits, and despite being, BRPC being told several times the fire company building is not a town-owned building, they included it in their, factoring of whether we were eligible to receive credits. So now that they have actually heard me, it's been determined that we actually are not eligible to be a green community because we don't meet the, there's not enough eligible energy efficiency work to spend down the designation grant. She said there might be other funding sources to make energy efficiency improvements, but the woman from BRPC is working with DOER, which is but I just wanted to let you know, because I know there are a few interested parties in Monterey who talk about the Green Communities Grant quite a bit, and can we use the funds, but it does not look like.
Basically, there's just not enough buildings that could get upgrades that would.
Correct, we have to have a 20% reduction, and the 3 surveys that we've had here, they have not determined that the work that could be done would save us 20%.
They can't just give us a better furnace and pump a bunch of insulation in the walls?
So of the 3 people we've had here, I believe 1 said yes, we need a new furnace, and 2 said no, we don't need a new furnace.
But, and,
What if we turn the lights out before 9?
I'll gladly give you, I have one of the reports, one of the companies never gave us one.
okay, so for right now, we have nothing to do there. but-
Nothing to do, I just wanted you to know. so-
Yeah, please just let
Thank you.
Peter know, Peter Marquette,
Yes, I will.
and then he'll update his group on that. G, use of meeting room, front room meeting room, this meeting room.
Yes, so just recently, there's been a lot of activity in here, which is good. However, this is a shared computer amongst a couple people, and there have been some meetings in here that people didn't let me know about. So I would like to, if it's okay with you, I found a shared calendar. I would like to send it out to everybody, and that they need to, I'm gonna create 2 of them, one for the computer and one for the office room, and you're gonna need to sign up. So if you happen to come in here and need to use a computer and it's already signed up to my office assistant, then I'm sorry, you're gonna have to reschedule to another day. I just don't, it's uncomfortable when some people are coming in here like, oh, I thought I could,
Yeah, it'd be good to have a plan.
Yeah.
My only question would be, as we add more people to the rotation, would it make any sense to look into a second, not cubicle, but desk and computer in this room? Cause right now we have 2 setups that, when we have a select board meeting, that this room's completely taken up, or any other kind of meeting, like Board of Health, Council on Aging. And then for the only other computer, you have Council on Aging outreach worker, Concom agent, office assistant possibly.
The treasurer. So the office assistant's been using this one, I have her set up
Okay.
only on this one. Concom can use either one,
Which either one, either
the
the,
one behind me.
Behind me or
office
this one?
assistant, or this
Okay.
one. The treasurer needs the one in there every other Monday. Gary has been using this one, I'm not sure why not in the town clerk's office.
Doesn't the town clerk's office have 2 computers in it?
One's a state computer that's only
Okay.
for state things.
Oh, okay, got it.
That's another discussion. There's a lot of people, and then you're gonna have your select board secretary in here, which brings me to the other item that I emailed you about this morning, is it's not on here because he's ordering another computer, because this one is actually set up so that I can access all my files, but if you're gonna have a select board secretary working on it, either I need a new computer that's set up for me, a laptop that I can bring in here to be able to do, if we're working on budgets, I need to be able to put me on the forms, or buy a laptop for the select board secretary and have her sit
What's the budget for additional computers?
4,000.
How much have we used so far?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I'd probably say maybe 1,000.
What do you foresee another station costing?
Probably about 1,000.
Let's look into that, all things considered.
Desk as well.
A station.
But
Oh,
there's, they come from different lines, cause we
Ah,
have
okay.
IT or computers 4,000, and a desk would come from probably like select board expenses or something, right?
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I can research some desk options, and we could certainly put another desk and another computer in the shared office too, because like, when the treasurer's in there, he doesn't need to be in there by himself, there's nothing.
Well, let's look into that, because now we have a lot more people than we did a year ago trying to work on a few shared computers.
Yep.
And if it's just the price of that's a price, but we're not building a new office space, we're just adding a desk and a computer.
So do you, I don't know when your select board secretary is starting, because she hasn't responded to me.
No, so last thing was you had reached out to her, and then you had reached out to her, so I hadn't reached out to her, and then you reached out to me that she hadn't responded. So I emailed her
Did you respond?
immediately, and to the second email. And then I said, please reach out to Melissa for new hire paperwork and Terry for getting sworn in. So I'll double check. I don't have a phone number. I forget if we ever got a phone number, but I can't seem to find one. But I have an email.
So does she know our next meeting is the noon meeting on the 6th?
I'll run that by her, and hopefully we could,
So if she is here, how do you envision her taking minutes if I need this computer?
so.
What's it take to get a computer here?
I just want you guys to sign off on it, I don't
Well, I
want
mean,
$1,000.
Well, let's just say that, okay.
It might take more than a week.
To get it.
Yeah.
It's not like you walk into Staples or
No,
go
I
to
have
Best Buy and get what you need and come back.
No, I have IT buy something that fits what we need.
And IT doesn't just have it like, warehouse somewhere, garage. Really? What's with this IT guy? Is that funny?
It is.
Why?
I don't even think IT firms around here have.
No,
computers
typically
sitting around.
IT
You gotta
firms
like
don't.
order them
Yeah,
from
you
like
gotta
Dell
order
and HP and.
They might order them for you,
Right.
but they don't walk in with them from your own
Okay.
source.
So, where does that leave us, going forward?
So we're good on the scheduling of the room, and now we have to make a decision about what to do about a computer.
I'd say, let's get it.
I'm on board with that. Do we wanna, waiting for a proposal is only gonna make it take
A
longer.
proposal for,
What computer, I think
well,
we
it's
should
not
just approve
subject
it.
to procurement,
Right, so I think we should just
and we'll
approve.
just follow best practice.
Yeah.
Compare,
So is it going to be for me or for, I have this one set up for the select board.
Well, I think-
secretary.
and-
What's the best?
You wanna just leave it up to me? and
so
I'll-
this is the.
Well, what do you think is best? A laptop or a full thing?
The laptop, if it's for me.
Okay, I also like laptop, because I like laptop,
Yeah, you can run with them.
yeah.
So what happens to that one then? How
Let's
does,
stay right here.
but yeah, I know it stays there, but how do you eliminate access to certain files and data that you said this is set up for you?
IT will, well, there's multiple user things on here, mine's password protected.
Okay, so next week, our new secretary sits down there.
She'll never know.
You'll probably be here for that meeting also, I would imagine. Getting her through the ropes, et cetera. You're not concerned about any data or anything like that she's seeing, touching, destroying?
She won't be able to get into my file.
Okay, fine.
But I think you guys are gonna be showing her the ropes, not me. She's your employee. The reason she was hired was to keep me separate from
From what?
from me.
Oh, we gotta keep you separate from someone else?
No, not for that reason, because you guys want your minutes to be your minutes, no influence of me.
Well, I think your influence is important, that she gets set up correctly. I mean, you've been doing this for how many years?
I was led to believe that this employee
Okay.
should deal only with the select board.
Was that our intent?
Well, she's going to Melissa for new hire paperwork.
Well, everybody gets them to do higher paperwork.
But I would have, I
think it's
would
starting
have
to-
presumed that once she wrote the
Yeah, I
minutes,
don't wanna
she's
rub, I
gonna-
want some.
yeah, that
Yeah,
she's
'cause
gonna
you're
need
the
to
supervisor
tell
of this
Melissa
person
about
too.
how to post them
How
and
does-
like,
how does that get
get
around?
shown how to use all of the
To the man next to
software.
you.
What's that?
How did she become, free and clear of Melissa's doctrine?
Who does the planning board clerk report to?
I don't know,
Planning board.
but isn't,
Select board secretary
but
reports.
isn't
Sure.
everybody that's appointed under the TA's supervision?
Not the HR director.
No, other than the HR director.
I'm a little slap happy tonight.
I know, right? We've
But
been
other
here
than
2
that,
hours.
for-
What's that?
Isn't everybody else, other than the HR director, supposed to be?
Select board secretary.
Select
If we
board
want-
secretary and the HR director and me are the only ones that report directly to the select board.
Okay, so I think we are a little beyond the scope of our agenda item, which was use of the front meeting room.
Right.
But the general consensus is that
Order a laptop.
order a laptop, and contingent upon available funds in select board, no, actually in computer and IT, right?
Yes.
Which it sounds like, so contingent upon that, we'll get another setup.
I'll tell you this one.
Second, do we have
So
a second or we're
that's-
just
I
going?
just wanted
That's
to-
general consensus.
Okay, go.
The next item is keys to the main office for select board. So I had asked Melissa, because occasionally Melissa's not in the office, and someone comes and says, there's a smell coming from the office, or, someone put their mail in the outgoing mail, but it's certified mail and it needs to be sent. And so what happens is, when this happens, I call the police, and the police let me in, and we do what we need to do. The question is, if the select board members, or the chair, we have a key to the office, so we don't need to call the police to get in the office. It's the question, you can see the email from Gareth. Gareth said that Melissa's office contains many confidential and irreplaceable documents that she is responsible for. And then he went on to say that the topic has come up many times over the years, and select boards have always been supportive of this, which is not any members of the select board having a key. So Scott may have been involved in some of that.
Yep.
And I said, maybe the town should focus on selecting better select board members, if those in charge can't even be trusted with keys to the office. So,
Well, that's absolutely true, just what we just went through.
so the question being, because I'd asked Melissa, who referred me to Gareth, does the select board desire or feel comfortable with the chair or the members having a key to the main office? Or not?
I say no.
How many times has this arisen? Give me a time, like, you can say the last month, the last year, whatever, but you tell me. Cause I haven't been called, so.
Yeah, no, in particular, I mean, sometimes it's because I was just in town hall, I remember, maybe it's a Thursday night, and the building inspector put a piece of certified mail in the outgoing mail, and then realized the town administrator is not gonna be in the office next day, and he says, can you please retrieve that, cause I need to send it out. Or there was one time that Melissa could probably remember, when there was this thing about smells, and I forget where it was even coming from eventually,
So it was the bathroom,
it was the bathroom.
but that, again, I would just say with smells, if you smell something funny, like that, what that email said anyway, the fire department should have been called. Not you going in, well, I know you're on the fire department.
So anyways, the question is, and of course, any file cabinets that have confidential personnel files are still locked, right?
Those are over here.
Yeah. So, that's my situation. How many times in a year? I don't know,
Or-
5 or 10? Like, and then it's monthly expense reports or whatnot, or
So I
the
can put
warrants and
those out
whatnot.
here.
I mean,
That's in
yeah,
a binder. I feel more comfortable with the less keys to my office, the better. Right now, it's just the police department and myself, so. You know. As there have been some very negative, you know, and I guess I would ask, does that mean you want keys to everybody's office? Like, why just my office? What if the smell was coming from the building inspector's office and he wasn't there? You still would have had to call the police to get in that office, or the tax collectors, or the assessors.
Yeah, I guess usually it's
Or the
just
clerks.
it's been little, I forget what it even was the most recent time. Well, that was actually to get in the box outside to collect the election ballots. But we just called the police. I mean, that's what happens. I've ended up calling the police. I've been told that phone leads directly to the police. It leads you to Berkshire, to dispatch. So then I call, however, I call a cell or something, and it usually is reasonably, you know, they're not on a call and they make their way over depending on who it is. We don't need to discuss it for a long time.
So Scott said no.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to go with no in light of what's happened recently. I agree with you that the town needs to elect better select board members, but unfortunately, it being democratic, we're not really in control of that. And I think this just gives us a little bit of safety to make sure that in the current environment, there can be no accusations of malfeasance. I don't believe that you would be guilty of them, but I don't wanna see the town, I don't even want the option for someone to say that.
Okay, that's that. We dealt with the next few items. Where's my other agenda?
I think we're.
So we're on
yeah,
to
we're email.
11, we're on to
We did GZA already, so we'd be on to 12.
12. So we got a request from the community center, for Laura Shaw as the chair of the community center committee in particular, an ARPA request, which is 12A, and we're just acknowledging that we received it. It's for $85,000 to build a pavilion. We do have that deadline of October 13th. Briefly, after that deadline, how do we wanna proceed? Do we wanna hold a public meeting and get input on the ARPA stuff? I mean, I guess we can make that decision at the time, but do think about, we
How we
asked,
wanna handle it once
yeah.
the deadline comes up,
we asked for proposals
by
by
15th, right?
by the Thursday, October 13th.
13th, okay.
And just be aware that we're talking about designating some or all of the money after that deadline. 12B is thank you to the Friends of the Library. It's printed out here, 12B. Thank you. This is about the $25,000 donation. Thank you for your generous donation toward the Monterey Library Building Project loan. On behalf of the town, the select board appreciates the contribution that you have made to lessen the burden on the Monterey taxpayer for years to come. Furthermore, we are grateful for your continued support of the new Monterey Library building through every phase of the project. I would move that we approve this letter.
Yeah, second,
Is there any discussion or comment on it? Call vote.
Yes.
Susan,
yes.
Scott, yes, and Justin, yes, motion carries. So we'll get a clean copy of that to sign. 12C memo of the planning board, read the zoning bylaw error. So you reached out to the planning board?
I did reach out to the planning
Okay.
board, explained the situation, and, you know, we've had several back and forths. The one issue I'll raise, and I raise it because it was a concern to me. We've been reaching out to various people in the past. By the way, if you look at any of the AG approvals, and you can get them online in a PDF, you'll see at the bottom that it actually says right there in wording that there has to be posting. And that posting is apparently after the passage, not before. So that's why you can read the language for yourself. So Tom reached out to Maggie Leonard, who was the former chair of the planning board during the 2012 revision. And apparently her reply was that the planning board felt that it would be a good thing for the town to have more camps and encourage them, and so they just changed it. But that's not legal. Right, so the town legally passed a zoning bylaw that made it by permit, and the planning board just apparently, according to this, might have just changed that because they felt that was a good thing, but that's not legal.
That's correct.
So
that's
I hope that there was a misunderstanding and that that's not actually what happened, because that doesn't reflect very well on someone who had a very good, long tenure on the planning board. But that was the communication I received, and that concerns me. I did respond to Tom that the bylaw as passed is by special permit. And so it's not really an option for the planning board to propose something different at this point, but the written document does not jive with the bylaw as passed, and that continues to be a problem. So supposedly, they are continuing to.
And that can only be done on an annual.
It could be done in special, but there's no way we could do it in time because you'd have to go through all the posting and public hearing requirements.
And it's the planning board's responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's one thing off our plate.
Yeah, but it's something that would be nice if it was on our plate, just to get motivated on it.
It'd be nice if it could just be done clerically. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes life does not agree with you.
Well, is there any way to go back through microfilm on the Berkshire Eagle, Berkshire Record, Shopper's Guide, anywhere that we post things, to see if Monterey had put in any
To
type
my
of?
knowledge, we've never done that, and no one can remember ever doing so. Normally what would have happened would they
Yeah,
they
what a
would have
bylaw.
updated the zoning rule, and that's what would have been going out, and we would have had a copy of that, but that doesn't seem to have happened in this instance. So I don't think we have any recourse, we're continuing to look, but
Okay. Melissa, is the only time that we print the bylaws is when there's been a change? I mean, we don't print them every 5 years, it's just to get older copies away and new copies in that are just less beat up.
And we don't actually print them anymore, we just put them online, you can print them yourself,
or not.
we don't have those books anymore, I think
Mhm.
2006 was the last time that those were done. Hey, I still use my copy.
I do too.
Okay.
So-
That's settled that.
Yep.
There is a thing in your packet, this MH.
The minors and everything, yeah.
Yeah, you got the letter
I read
that
it.
Donna sent to Jeremiah, that's really 1C, but we should come back to that.
Yep.
We're waiting
I read it
as far as
earlier,
I know.
so.
I think it was good.
Approved minutes, can we tackle 9/7 and 9/13 joint?
Please, because I don't want them to get too old.
Okay, so we'll just do 9/7 and 9/13 joint,
Okay.
if that's a reasonable, so 9/7. I'm red, Susan blue. All good to me.
Sorry, I'm only on page 2.
Let me know if anyone has any concerns other than how it's drafted and edited here. Otherwise, we will approve them.
Steve ever come back to us with his Parks Commission? I think, didn't I just-
He was here
did I
tonight.
just see- Yeah,
We had to
but
kick him off.
that was today, wasn't it?
VA doesn't know, we sent
Yeah, he
something,
just
but
sent us that list that said that he didn't look at, so I was 1-2 grand left.
Yeah, but they, at last I knew they didn't have any quotes or estimates, right?
No, so I am working on trying to get some of that,
I think
but
it's,
that's proving to be very difficult.
I think it's right for ARPA personally. Any, no.
Sorry, I'm on page 3. and those are just documents. Yep, I'm
Oh,
good
the
with
one
the,
thing, page
what?
4. You
Which
couldn't
one is
be
this?
legally upheld, this is 9-7, couldn't be legally upheld the special election in concert, get rid of the saving. And then this would have saved the town.
Yep.
That's the only change.
Did you catch that? Melissa? Oh, you
I'll
got
give
it,
her my
okay.
copy.
Alright. Sorry, sometimes she does it right as you say it, so.
That's the only change, other than how they're listed. I would move that we approve the 9-7-22 minutes as edited.
Second,
Any discussion? None, Susan,
yes?
Scott,
Yes.
Justin, yes, do a little thing.
Dance. Alright,
We
nine,
just initial there.
the 913 joints?
9-13 joints.
Oh, this needs to be deleted, otherwise it's a meeting twice, you got that too? Okay.
We're still working on those.
What?
Oh,
that's. Oh, what are we working on?
I got, no, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's sad. And then.
Just a policy of making a motion on an article or on a item, thought. It's not part of the agenda.
We could, I mean, we can entertain things that aren't on the agenda, if they're unforeseen to the chair when posting a meeting. But we also kind of have developed a practice of, if reasonable, putting things off to the next meeting. That way, you know, we're all prepared and, done our homework. We can also add, I don't know how to do. You know, some boards do unforeseen business, which just adds, or something else like that. Our agendas are very specific. If you look at other towns, they have town administrator report, select board items, and maybe if they have a real formal thing, they put on the agenda.
I've seen the difference.
Yeah.
Not as, I don't mean to be criticized.
Yeah.
It looks like a lot of things have transpired through fear and moving. To come back in and see the changes in the way that it's being executed makes me wonder about what took place over the last 6 or 7 years and how things have changed. And it's like coming back into your home and realizing that
All
this
furniture
is
got
my
moved
home.
Yeah, that was.
So I'll put my concerns on a future agenda so that we can all discuss it at that
Yeah,
time.
just do
Because
that.
I'm sure the public is gonna love me.
Well, typically Melissa or I do a draft agenda.
Yeah, you're gonna come in and see me or email me what it
Yeah.
is.
What, we had a real formal policy about like Mondays at 9 AM. Just depending what it is, just email Melissa or me or both.
Okay.
And
I'm
then,
still trying that.
um,
Mondays at 9. It's really just to get Justin in here.
That's only changed. Motion to approve 9-13 joint with that one little change and the other amendments.
Second,
Any discussion or comments, there being none, call a vote on the 9-13 joint minutes?
yes,
Yes,
Aye.
motion carries, alright. Little thing there, little thing here, that's all we're gonna do,
Can
If that works for
I ask one
everyone.
question?
yes,
The candidates for the police chief,
yes.
Sophia has decided that for the internal candidate, the chief shouldn't be there for the interviews, it should be her and me and maybe one of you guys. So I just wanted to decide like
the chief shouldn't be there, is that what you, okay.
obvious reasons.
The
Right,
chief
right.
should-
That
No.
he shouldn't, the chief,
You said chief and we heard shape,
sorry.
that was why it was confusing. Yeah, I know.
So she suggested one of the select board members doing the interview with us.
Have you done any interviews yet?
No, we have 2 scheduled for the 19th.
Would there be, I know we already agreed upon the process, would there be opposition to a select board member at each? I wanna make it equal. You know,
Well, but the chief won't be at one of them.
So the
I don't
person,
see what, I mean, I
So
guess
we're
maybe
doing it
she-
because there are some questions about like, what would you change currently in the department? We don't want that person to feel uncomfortable with,
Making
you know,
their disclosure.
and they may not answer honestly if the current chief is sitting there and they feel like they're being criticized.
Hey, the guy's leaving, you know?
Yes, but he also didn't think he should sit in there.
No, that's good. I mean, he understands it.
But she sit on it, I mean,
Sophia and I can do it by ourselves if we want, but we didn't.
I'll join
Maybe
you.
you wanna join for that one? Okay, I'll send you the date.
Daytime.
It is.
Yeah.
alright,
it's daytime.
are there any comments, we're gonna do the rest,
To work.
we're gonna do the rest of the minutes another day.
Okay.
Any
How-
comments or questions from the public? No, we can't.
How long do we, or how behind, like, I know how many behind we are, but how's our timing on approving minutes? Are we okay?
We're in the clear by
Okay.
2 weeks at least.
Alright,
It's
excellent.
30 days or 3 meetings, it's
Right,
always
right.
30 days for us, we're totally
This is
clear.
last week, so.
Yeah,
This is
if
all-
we're
do I have
ever-
to sign this too?
If we ever, I'll pay attention if we ever run up, but we're good. Motion to adjourn,
Here.
Move,
seconded, call a vote on motion
Yes.
to adjourn,
yes.
yes, 3 yeses, motion carries, 8:33 PM. Shorter one next week.
Now, aren't